Hello everyone. I'm going to present you the Smart Contract Manager. The Smart Contract Manager is part of the i3-MARKET backplane and it enforces the contractual agreements between data provider and data consumer. These are the endpoints of the Smart Contract Manager. And first, we will want to request a contractual parameters template based on an offering ID. This offering ID is already registered and we will retrieve the contractual parameters based on that. So I executed the endpoint and I received the static parameters from the data offering, for example, the license grant, whether the data is streaming data or personal data, also the pricing model. But I received also the dynamic parameters, which are the creation date, the consumer DID, and also the public keys of the provider and consumer, which are here. And this will be filled in the negotiation part, where the consumer creates a data purchase request, and then the provider can either reject the suggested start date and end date, or they can accept and fill in their with their public keys and then sign the contract. And also the consumer will then sign the contract. And after this negotiation phase is over, we can create the agreement on the blockchain. For that, we have these two endpoints. We create a raw transaction, then sign it with a wallet, and then we deploy the signed transaction. So, in order to create a raw transaction, we need the template. Let's say the template is filled and also the contract is signed. So now we have the complete template and we can store it on the blockchain. Right now we have the complete template and we have to use the wallet in order to create the raw transaction. So now I introduce the Ethereum address of the provider, and now I can execute and I receive a raw transaction. This raw transaction has to be signed with the wallet, and I use this endpoint from the wallet. Where I introduce the raw transaction, and I also need the ID of the provider because he's the one creating the raw transaction, so he can sign it. And now I get a notification from the wallet whether I want to sign this raw transaction. I sign it, and the endpoint will give me the signed transaction, which I have to deploy using the Smart Contract Manager. And now I have this deploy signed transaction endpoint. I introduce my signed transaction and I can execute it. This will take a little bit of time because it takes time to deploy transaction on the blockchain and also to later on notify the provider and the consumer that the agreement was created. I should receive a receipt of this transaction and also the confirmation should be one. So now I received the receipt of the transaction and also the confirmation, and the status is one. So our signed transaction was successfully deployed and our agreement was stored in the blockchain. We can check our agreement based on the agreement ID, and we can see that our agreement is on the blockchain, and here is the contract that was stored. Also, we can check the state, and this agreement is active. because it was signed and it was stored on the blockchain. So no violation happened because it was just created. This is the initial state. And we can also retrieve the agreement based on the consumer public key. So if I enter the consumer public key and I want the active agreements, then I receive the agreement I just created. So this would be how you create an agreement and store it on the blockchain.